Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Strife's Sanctum. My name is Citizen Strife, and this week I'm going to talk about a spin off of a show that I've already discussed in detail RWBY. But not just any RWBY. It will be RWBY Ice Queendom. So, for those unaware, RWBY is a show that was created by Rooster Teeth about a decade ago, and has been successful in many different ways, independently of the anime scene, but it's kind of been adjacent to it, having a lot of actors in it, having a lot of inspiration from it, but it never really had its own anime spin-off or anything. It was one of those things that was like anime, but it was created in America, but it has tons of influences. But it's popular in its own right, and some people, or a lot depending on who you ask, have kind of stopped watching, which is fair. I would imagine any show that's gone around for 9 seasons, or volumes in this case, would dropped off. But I said my piece on the previous 8 volumes, because I started late and dug back into it and did reviews of the volumes as they happened. As I found time to do so, I've spent like a month and a half just reviewing them in detail. So when I'd heard that Volume 9 was going on hiatus until fairly recently, like they just now released the episodes, they replaced it last year with this spin-off, which was an anime adaptation, and it was kind of a pseudo retelling of the original concepts, the original couple of volumes, and then they went and did their own thing. Now, whether that was successful or not, I don't know. And I would honestly say, not really. Before I get into that, I'll talk about initial thoughts of the first couple of episodes of Volume 9. I will say that the approach has been very fairy tale-esque, which is a different thing. They've been really focusing on the war aspect and the end of the world and gathering all of the relics and things and stopping Salem and all that junk. So it's weird that they're going into this fantastical approach and retelling a lot of fairy tales beat for beat, but also doing different things, adding different characters, some from stuff like Alice in Wonderland to some other different things. It feels kind of like a mishmash D&D setting, but it's cool because they're allowed to do cool stuff that they weren't really able to do when they were focused on the hyper-realism of the other volumes. So it lends itself well to stuff like RWBY because of the action-based things, and these characters are a lot older and more defined, so a lot of the stranger shit doesn't really apply anymore. So these grounded characters that are just trying to live their lives get caught in this fairy tale and trying to get back home and be with their loved ones or their compatriots and whatever because of the shit that happened at the end of Volume 8. So it's a nice little departure, and it's a change of pace, and I think it's going to go well. I mean, there's like probably 10 or 15 more episodes to go and things like that, but I've been a fan of the more serious RWBY stuff, if that's borne itself out. So when I heard that this was going to be more serious, I thought, okay, this would be worth watching. I thought Ice Queendom, obviously the animation fits well in an anime aesthetic. Rehearing the voice actors basically redo stuff that they did 10 years ago was odd, but it didn't sound offbeat. It played itself a lot more seriously and was like a greatest hits of those. But then again, the first real volume was a short one, so going through an entire episode or two in the span of an episode really didn't matter all that much. But they weren't trying to follow beat for beat everything exactly because they weren't retelling the entire 8 volumes. They were just, hey, this is the first season and then a little bit of the second and third, but then we're doing our own thing. So the first couple of episodes get you in that mode, and I think those are the best parts. It's kind of like a remake of those things, and much like, say, something Final Fantasy VII, and to a lesser extent Trigun Stampede, with the way they're doing a lot of their retellings of things, I think it works to a point. The characters are way less comedic, but it's still fine. I don't know if I would go out of my way to see it for that. I think it is a thrill that, again, the actors are still doing their same characters, but having them redo things from 10 years ago is still kind of strange. But, you've had stuff like Persona 3 Portable, Persona 4 Golden, Dot Hack GU. This stuff does happen from time to time. Catherine Full Body, where you'll re-record your old characters a decade later. I assume Nier has done the same thing with some of their actors they've brought back. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. And it is nice that they didn't just recast them with different people. It is the main, 8 characters plus people from Beacon, which is nice. And then they added a character named Shion who was neat and integral to the plot, but also kind of took a back seat. Really, where this struggles is trying to add other characters other than the main 4, and then trying to weave in its narrative. I think the issue is they were trying to tell a story, but they didn't have enough meat on the bones. They were hoping that the visual spectacle of being in a new world in a dreamlike state would be enough. I think that works in Volume 9 because you're doing fairy tales. You're kind of retelling stuff we know, but in a different way with different characters. It's like a D&D session. It works. But this was written by people who worked on Psychopaths. This was stuff that I think they were trying to be a dream, but they were trying to show a very serious dream and didn't really get the fantastical side of it. Once you got past the initial, okay, this is Weiss's dream, the story is there's this Grim, this evil manifestation of Blerg, basically, that can inhabit dreams and forces you basically die if you let it linger long enough. So the new character Shion can invade dreams and help you escape that. They do it in the first episode with Jean and his group, who then kind of just don't do anything. You bring them back for the fan service, and then you don't really do anything with them. It kind of sucks. And they show up in the main plot line, but then they just kind of stand there. They're not added to the group. The main other 3 characters, other than Weiss, because this is her nightmare, go in. So Ruby, Blake, and Yang go in. Weiss is the one inflicted with this dream Grim or nightmare Grim, and it's basically taking over her manifestations of jealousy and greed and, living up to expectation. That was what she was going through in the first couple of episodes. But they don't have enough to say. They don't explore the space. They mostly give you the visuals, and then they change Weiss around to this militaristic character, but it doesn't feel complete. They have some cool ideas like these little light posts or lamp posts that you have these little tokens that can give you checkpoints, and you get thrown out and you get whatever. There's a time limit on there, but they're kind of fast and loose with it. And Blake gets some cool stuff near the end, and the visuals and the fighting scenes are great, especially, like I said, the retelling of the first couple of battles in the first couple of volumes are really well done, and they're a visual spectacle. These were people that made stuff like, this was produced by Shaft, who did March Like a Lion, Madoka Magica, and several, like, 20 or 30 different shows over the last 20 years. Like I said, people making Psychopaths. So it's kind of like, you have the writing pedigree and you have the animation pedigree, but you don't have enough to justify. Like, if this was a movie, I think that's where my main criticism is. Weiss's dream makes sense as a place. You go to it, you explore it, you do like an hour, you do it. This was trying to be a 12-episode series, and that's really where the problems lie. Because once you get over the initial, okay, we're in Atlas, we're in Weiss's home, and they explain that this is about Weiss and what she's going through, it's cool that you're seeing her family, which you don't see in the first 3 volumes. You see them in 4, 5, and onward. but they throw in enough that they're giving you, if you've seen the show, you know these characters, you know who they're played by, you know what's going on. So it's fun in that sense. But going in the dream, it's like Ruby gets captured, or Ruby and Blake get captured, or they get thrown into a place that has Jean and Pyrrha. Yes, Pyrrha's back in this because, again, this was made in volume 2, like the volume 1, volume 2 era. So you see them, but they're manifestations of not Jean and Pyrrha because they're just standing around doing the thing. They're not really actively part of this party. It's just manifestations of what Weiss thinks they are. Like the best versions of them, or just invalids, basically. So they're just stuck. They're cut off from everything else. The idea is you're supposed to find this thing, but it's guarding its weak point. It's guarding its weakness. And every step of the way, they keep getting stuck. So you have to band together and all this stuff. And it sounds good in theory, and it leads to a couple of awesome scenes with Blake and Weiss near the end. But it doesn't really feel like it's their show. It's really just Ruby and Weiss, because that was the defining rivalry in the early episodes, so they play on that as a rivalry here. But Weiss in this dream state feels strange. She doesn't sound great. The actress forces a lot of very stiff dialogue, which is probably what they were going for. So it's different from how she's portrayed normally, whether she was in the first couple of seasons or not. So there's not this sense of freedom. It's very stiff. It's very artificial. It's designed to be artificial. It's designed to prey on fears and play on weirdness, but it doesn't go far enough. It only gives you the bare minimum of a setting that seems imposing, but really doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't play mind tricks on you. It doesn't, distort things enough. They play on the trick that that whole persona thing where you're facing your true self and all that, but it's just very surface value, surface level stuff that doesn't really add up, which is a contrast to what Rooster Teeth had made, which was a couple of years worth of funny dialogue and funny characters doing funny things, and we can call back to, hey, there's this character we like, or this character, see this scene that we liked. Those first 2 episodes of, oh, this is stuff from the original series. This is how they met, or this is how they met up. This is how they became a team. That stuff is played really well, and the visuals respond to that. But it's one of those shows that drags on way longer than it needs to be. And then it finishes off with the food fight, which is cool, but is it really a necessary thing? Because I'm guessing they were gauging this as a 12-episode show, they really did a disservice trying to stretch it out that long. There's no shame in making an OVA. There's no shame in making a 6-episode series. Some shows have survived being 6 episodes, Fooly Cooley being chief among them. It was experimental, but Golden Boy's 6 episodes, and that's a dorky comedy about a dork who's a perv. There doesn't have to be a lot of meat on the bones, but this is one of those things where it seems like it has something to say, but it doesn't. The people writing this have gone on and done better things. But they've also done stuff like this, which is very frustrating. They've also done Psycho-Pass Season 2, which was very surface-level Psycho-Pass shit after the first season, which was amazing. So it's kind of it's a lot like Psycho-Pass Season 2, where it's just a lot of surface-level guff that gets in the way of what was a promising idea. Which kind of sucks, because like I said, I'm one of the fans of RWBY. I started watching 3 or 4 years ago, midst of season 5 or 6, give or take, and I've gone back and rewatched the show 2 or 3 times, and I've enjoyed it, and I thought it has a lot to offer, so that an anime spin-off should work. If this was a 4-episode show, you get the initial allure, and then you still figure out where you're going and get everything done. But because they had to stretch out a 6 to 8 episode thing to, counteract the 3 episodes that were the good things, you're left with a stuff that just peters out after a while. And there are shows like that. Name a show that feels like, okay, it has a great premise, but after a while it just drags on and you stop caring. This was one of those things. I was engaged, but then I just wanted to give up. So it really disappointed me because I thought there was a lot to offer. You contrast that to something like Trigun Stampede, which kind of started off kind of and has slowly gotten better. I'm only about halfway through that, but I'm at this stage where I feel, okay, Trigun Stampede's leading me somewhere. I feel like it's getting to somewhere and making some strides. This had, let's do the basic skeleton of an idea that was a popular thing, and then try something, but only put in the minimal effort required to do things. I'm not saying they did it as an obligation or a paycheck. I just don't think that for as creative as you can be with a franchise that has a lot of meat on its bones, there is a lot of stuff you can dig into and try. They really didn't. And it kind of sucks because these people do better. So you get a good couple episodes and then you get a lot of and it's not fun. Honestly, it's not fun talking about iffy shows like this because it's not such a dumpster fire that I hated it, and it's not so good that I just revel in it. This is the definition of, this sounded like good on paper, but in execution didn't work. So it's definitely a skip. I don't know many many shows that I've actually finished that I would recommend people don't, but fair play. But that'll do it for me. This was going to be a quick one, I knew right away, because I've got the Final Fantasy episode next week. After that is Yakuza. We're also going to do Holic and Metal Gear. And eventually I'm going to dip into Mega Man with the Mega Man month. So I'll finish off whatever episodes through April that I have, and then I will pick. I've probably already got in mind what episodes I'm going to do and talk about, but I'm curious going forward what that's going to feel like in the experience, because Mega Man is something that I have some knowledge with and have experienced in different ways, but I haven't dug deep into it like I intend to. I did the Mega Man X episode because that was my favorite, but this is going to be a cool experiment to try and see what are the other franchises going to give me. What is Mega Man Battle Network like? What is Mega Man Zero like? What is some of the other Mega Man games, that early on Mega Mans, or even stuff like Mega Man 7? I haven't chosen what yet, but I'm curious because as I looked, there was tons of Mega Man stuff. So I could do this for years. Mega May sounds like a great thing to do. But that'll do it for me. And I'll see you guys next time. Citizen Strife, signing off.